Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 466 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked to agree with me. I'm asked you to hear me out. One thing at the Unpopular Podcast that I like to highlight is individualism. Not everything pertains or works or means something the same to everyone else. Individualism is so important because you are able to control yourself. People are able to control how they feel about something, what they consume, what they don't consume. It's individualism, and I love to highlight that. I also like to highlight that in sports in this way. Whether we talk about football, whether we talk about basketball, whatever sport we're talking about, each team is different. While yes, the goal usually is the same, to get to a Super Bowl, get to an NBA championship, get to a World Series. There's different ways to get there. And some teams are closer than others. Going into the season, what did I say about the New York Jets? I said that this was going to be the most important season, not just in franchise history, but this was going to be a very important season for Aaron Rodgers. This is going to be a very important season for Robert Saleh. You see, I started this episode with individualism because I wanted to highlight how individualism works in the NFL and how individualism is how we're seeing different teams, and also it can go hand in hand with pressure. And I said that there was not a team in the NFL that had more pressure on itself going into the season than the New York Jets. You can debate, you can question where they should have been ranked or how people should have viewed them going into the season, but I can promise you that they viewed themselves as a Super Bowl caliber team. They viewed themselves as a top tier team. They viewed themselves as a team that should have something to say about who hoists the Super Bowl at the end of the year. They did that. And because of that, and because of the moves that they've made these last few years, more specifically getting Aaron Rodgers, I believe their belief in themselves being a Super Bowl caliber team and them projecting themselves as to be a Super Bowl caliber team allowed the world to think that as well. Well, some people in the world to think that. And because of that, it grows and it breeds expectation. And I said going into this season that there was not a team that had more expectation on their shoulders than the New York Jets. Well, as we sit here today, as the New York Jets lose to the New England Patriots, who, might I add, going into this game, they only had one win. It was against the Bengals week 1. They were starting a rookie quarterback in Drake May. And when you look at their totals and you just look at the team, you can argue that this Patriots team was the worst team in football. Now, yes, obviously there are other teams, but it can be an argument. This Jets team lost to that Patriots team 25-22. We talked about this, I think, last episode. Again, I appreciate everyone that I told you guys last episode I was going to miss Wednesday's episode. So, we're here. Or miss Saturday's episode because I was out of town, but we're here. So I'm good. It feels good to be back. But let's get back to what we're talking about. I talked about this when they lost to the Steelers. I even talked about this when they lost the week prior. When you have expectations and there is a high demand, there is a lot of opinions headed towards you because you have the world watching, and you're not meeting those expectations. Whether your team, your player, you're not meeting those expectations that you set on yourself going into the season, i.e. individualism. What tends to happen is blame starts to get casted. You have to figure out, how is it that we are not close to the expectations that we set on ourselves? How is it that we are much further than the expectations that we set on ourselves now than we were, say, a year ago when circumstances were much worse in our eyes? Which is why you get people like Robert Saleh getting fired, which is why you get things like Nathaniel Hackett getting demoted, which is why you get things like maybe overspending to trade for Devontae Adams. I don't like, and we've seen this before, I don't like to call for a season to be over halfway through or a little before halfway through. Because you never know. We've seen teams go on mean runs. We've seen teams just get hot and find their way into the playoffs. And if you get to the playoffs, you pretty much have a shot. So I don't like to call a season being over. I feel it's a tad bit premature. But here is one thing that I do say. And this thinking that I have comes from a lot of data. It comes from what I've seen. And this thinking of mine usually comes when people say this team can, quote unquote, flip the switch. When they flip the switch, they'll be better. And my thinking is this. Has that team done anything, shown anything to make you think that they're even capable of flipping the switch? And when I look at this Jets team, they haven't done anything. Let's talk about some of the streaks that they're on. I think they're on a 6-game losing streak. Aaron Rodgers has gone like 13 straight games, I think, without throwing 300 yards. They're the only team in the NFL this year that has not scored hasn't scored 30 points. Or I'll say this, they have not scored over 25 points. They're regressing defensively since firing Robert Saleh. Their offense has absolutely no life. And it looks like this Aaron Rodgers experiment has failed. So when people say, oh, they can flip the switch, my thing is they haven't shown anything to make at least me think that they can flip the switch. And then I go to the grand scheme of it all. The reason why I started with individualism, because every team, while yes, the goal is still a Super Bowl, it doesn't take long to realize if your team is a Super Bowl caliber team or not. And once you understand that, and once you realize that, that's where the individualism, when we talk about teams, come from. That's when their views on their team starts to change. That's when their goals may start to change. That's when their approach to things start to change. That's where the individualism comes when we're talking about football. When I look at this Jets team, there's nothing, and I mean nothing, that you can point to think that this team is even going to get close to those expectations that they put on themselves. I heard Shannon Sharp say this, and I didn't think about it at the time, but he's absolutely right. Nobody really attacks the whole quarterback away thinking. When you have a good defense, when you have good pieces, nobody really attacks that. And I mean attacks in a sense of when people say that the Jets were a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender, I was one of those people that was saying that. Not once did it ever cross my mind that things change yearly. And it was naive of me, because I'm only speaking for myself, it was naive of me to think that a defense that was playing so high, that was playing so well, was going to remain at that level year after year after year. And we're talking about a sport that is so physical and that anything can happen. And we also talk about a sport that it's also important to have the right coach in line. And I think it's safe to say now, Aaron Rodgers has not been great. He's been good, but I'll say this like this: he's been good in spurts. That's not good enough for a Super Bowl caliber team, and that's damn sure not good enough, and not what the Jets expected. On top of that, when people, I'm not gonna do it, but when people do the whole blame pie thing, and a lot of people like Stephen A. Smith gives majority of it to Aaron Rodgers, I understand why. It's such a trickle-down effect. You get Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers wants Nathaniel Hackett, who is notoriously a bad coach. He wants Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator. He wants his friend Alan Lazard. He wants Randall Cobb. You have to pay him. You can't pay somebody else. You have to let somebody else go. Aaron Rodgers wants someone like Mike Williams. Aaron Rodgers, it's his responsibility to build a relationship with Garrett Wilson, which he did not prioritize in the offseason. At least that's what the reports are saying. It's not Aaron Rodgers. All of it is not Aaron Rodgers' fault, but I understand why people are saying that the dumpster fire right now, and I think it's safe to say that this is a dumpster fire right now. A dumpster fire that is the Jets. You know what it is? I take it back. I don't know if I've said this or not, but I think this is the worst thing that could have happened to the Jets. The worst thing that could have happened to Aaron Rodgers is the success that Tom Brady saw when he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because that was a true quarterback away situation. And while the Jets could have been, Aaron Rodgers is not Tom Brady. And it's no shame, but it is truth that a 41-year-old quarterback looks old, looks a step slow. While he has spurts isn't going to win you the ultimate prize. And for the Jets, it hasn't really won them games. And when we talk about rock bottom, I thought that losing to the Steelers, after getting Devontae Adams, after firing Robert Saleh, after demoting Nathaniel Hackett, having all those moves. I thought that was rock bottom, not because the Steelers were bad, but because the Jets knew how important last week was. The Jets knew how important, if you're going to turn around your season, you just lost to the Bills. If you're going to turn around your season, you have to do it now. Because there's at this point, there's no excuses. You have a number one receiver. You have pretty much two number one receivers. You make all these changes hoping that is what's going to spearhead you in the right direction. Losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I thought that was rock bottom because of just how important that game was to the Jets season. I have learned that now I believe that losing to a Patriots team that, in all intents and purposes, is not looking to win. They're in the rebuild process, so they're not trying to win. And on top of that, they lose their quarterback. They lose Drake May midway through the game. So you lose to a team that is tanking, essentially rebuild, and a team that loses their starting quarterback, who is a rookie. And I think Dan Orlowski said it. Shouts out to him. A team that doesn't give up 250 yards, a team that scores 25 or more, and a team that I don't think has any turnovers and wins the possession battle, now that I think about it, is like 700 and something in one. And that one is the Jets. It's so crazy how different we are looking at the Jets now than how we thought we would be looking at them week one. Congratulations to the Patriots for beating the Jets 25-22. You know what the saying is. The saying is, if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. The saying is, if someone shows you their true self, believe them. The Cowboys have been showing who they are this entire year. It's no coincidence that almost every single Cowboys game, win or loss, has looked eerily similar. The Cowboys are showing you who they are. I think because they have the title, the moniker of America's team, because they have so many fans, because Jerry Jones has had past, and I mean past, success, that people are still in denial about what they've shown us. I hear you. I hear that one person. That one, first of all, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. I hear that one person. Jay, what have they shown us? I'm glad you asked. Trust me, I know you weren't technically asking me. You're probably asking yourself, but I'll answer it. They've shown us that the formulas that breed successful teams are formulas that they're different but won't change. And what I mean by that is what makes a good team? You have to have at least you have to have at least three of the four pillars. You have to have a good coach. You have to have a good defense. You have to have a good quarterback, and you have to have a good running game. I'm not saying that you have to have all four, but you at least have to have 3 of the 4. You at least have to be able to lean on 3 of the 4. When you look at this Cowboys team, they don't have a good defense. Their coach is constantly in question. Dak Prescott is constantly in question. And they don't have a running game to save their life. They activated Dalvin Cook, because I've been asking about Dalvin Cook all season. I'm like, where the hell is Dalvin Cook? They activated Dalvin Cook, and it's no question that he didn't provide the spark that you thought he was supposed to provide. Ezekiel Elliott didn't provide the spark that he was supposed to provide. And yet again, they lose to the 49ers 30-24. Yet again, every single game, win or loss, the Dallas Cowboys look exactly the same. Dak Prescott puts up big numbers, but those numbers are usually in garbage minutes because either they're up high or they're down big. But he's probably thrown upwards of 2 to 3 bad interceptions, i.e. he did that again against the 49ers. They don't have any other dependable weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb. Yes, you can say Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence are out. But even when they were playing, they weren't making much of a difference. Mike McCarthy, Dan Orlowski explained it. They still have no creativity to this offense. But I don't know if that's because their coaching staff doesn't have the creativity, or it's because they don't have the personnel to get creative. Yes, CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion, is a top tier, maybe top 5 wide receiver in the league. In this game, he had 13 receptions for 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. That is a top tier receiver. But name me the team that has ever found success that just had an okay quarterback and a Hall of Fame-ish, back up, and a top-tier talent at the wide receiver position. At some point, man, like we have to, maybe we are at this point. Maybe I'm just talking to talk. But at some point, we have to be honest about what we're seeing. Dallas is not a good team. You know, I just talked about the Jets, and I think Eric Mangini said it. They're a team full of mercenaries, the Jets. They have a bunch of good names. They have a bunch of good players. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame name. Devontae Adams is still a good player. Garrett Wilson is still a good player. Breece Hall is still a good player. Sauce Gardner, even though he hasn't had a great season, he's still a good player. Quentin Williams, still a good player. CJ Moses, still a good player. They're just not a good team. That's the Jets. The difference between the Jets and the Cowboys is the Cowboys don't have the good players, and they're not a good team. Now, we've talked about it ad nauseum, how they got to this point and how Jerry Jones was so pivotal in this essential mess that we're watching. But it's time to say it, man. It's been time, but for the people that are still holding on to that hope that the Cowboys are able to flip the switch, I ask you the same way that I ask Jet fans. What have you seen this year? I know that they're 3-4, but those three wins have come to teams outside of the Steelers that are below 500. So, what have the Cowboys shown you this year to make you think that they are even capable of flipping the switch? We're going to talk about a team in a second that is pretty much praying that they flip the switch. We're going to talk about them in a second. But this Cowboys team, what have they shown you? Because what they've shown me is that whatever proverbial switch that they're going to flip, they're still going to be a bad team. And what's even worse is they have a gauntlet of a schedule coming up. You got Commanders that's 6-2. You got the Falcons that are, what are the Falcons right now? That are 5-3. It's not gonna. Oh, the Eagles are coming up. It's not gonna get any easier. A team that probably because they have the moniker of America's team, a team that had so much promise in a lot of people's eyes, a lot of fans' eyes coming into the season, is now on the verge of not even making the playoffs. And when we're sitting back and really thinking about it and looking at this roster, unless they make a drastic move at the trade deadline, which I think is in a week, I don't see much change here with this Cowboys team. It's not a good team, man. It's not. Or I will say this, if you want me to shoot them some bail, they're a good team when they're playing bad teams. Like the Cowboys usually are. They're a good team when they're playing bottom feeders, when they're playing teams like the Browns. But when they play good teams, when they play teams that they hope to be on the same level when they play teams that have playoff aspirations, and when they play teams that this point of the season, their goals are still Super Bowl, they usually lose, like the 49ers losing 30-24. Speaking of those 49ers, let's get off the Cowboys because my back's itching talking about them. Speaking of the 49ers, the 49ers is another team that has kind of struggled this year. They have struggled this year. I don't think that at this point of the season they thought that they would be 4-4, especially when you look at some of the teams that they've played. And we have seen the issue that Brock Purdy has had. In fact, I think we have seen the biggest issue in Brock Purdy's game, and why I have pushed back on Brock Purdy being a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying that your status as a top 10 or top tier quarterback should be based on the talent that you have around you. In fact, I think that the talent that you have around you should only enhance that. I'm not saying it can't hinder it, because we've seen quarterbacks that have absolutely no talent around them and they're still top tier quarterbacks. But one trait that I think all top tier quarterbacks have is they're able to anticipate movement and throw players open. As bad as he's been this year, and I hate to keep going back to them, but as bad as he's been this year, one thing that Aaron Rodgers has made a career of, one thing that Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Hall of Fame for, is he's one of the greatest quarterbacks at throwing players open. Not every player knows how to get open. And if you are a great quarterback, you're able to throw them open. You're able to throw them to spots that maybe they were unable to see is open. Brock Purdy has not struggled. I'm not saying he can't, has struggled with that this year. He's struggled with throwing players open. Now, why has that been such a struggle this year more than other years? That is when the talent comes in. When you have a Brandon Ayuk, when you have a George Kittle, when you have a Deebo Samuels, when you have a Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, those players are great players. A lot of those players will for sure have a gold jacket at the end of their career. And those players make it easier to play quarterback because you don't necessarily have to throw them open because they're good enough to just know where it's open. Well, when you lose that, when Brandon Ayuk goes out for the season, when Christian McCaffrey's been out, when Deebo Samuels is out, back and forth, that is why you've seen such a drop with the 49ers. Now, Brock Purdy did an exceptional job of playing quarterback against the Cowboys. But we are talking about the Cowboys, who has underachieved. They haven't been great at all, really, this year. That, to me, is what's going to tell the fate of this 49ers team. Their defense has moments, but their defense, I think we're not at that point anymore where we can just depend on their defense for being, the ship that steers them to an NFC championship or steers them to a Super Bowl. I don't think we're at that point anymore. Now you need the offense, and while yes, you outside of Christian McCaffrey, this is your offense. George Kittle was incredible. George Kittle was probably the best player out there next to CeeDee Lamb. Deebo Samuel is going to have to be great because this was a great win against the Cowboys. It continues their winning streak on the Cowboys. I think it's like 6-0 right now, or 6-game win streak or something like that. But like I just said about the Cowboys, the 49ers, Brock Purdy has to be more consistent with throwing people open, with showing how good he can be, because if not, when you play teams that the benefit for the 49ers is the NFC isn't as strong as we thought it would be going in. However, there is one team right now that is above the rest. And if the 49ers think that they're going to play that team and win, I don't know. And that team resides in Detroit. But for right now, shouts out to the 49ers for beating the Cowboys 30-24. Man, it feels good being a Washington Commanders fan, man. Let me tell you why a Hail Mary is so difficult, and why more times than not a Hail Mary is unsuccessful. And we actually saw why with this Commanders and Bears game. The reason why a Hail Mary is so difficult to pull off is because outside of the quarterback and the receivers, every element of a Hail Mary is going against the quarterback. Is going against the team trying to attempt and successfully accomplish or successfully land a Hail Mary. From the distance, from the temperature, the wind elements, from the other team. No, the hardest thing to do in sports is to, let's say this, the hardest thing to do in the NFL, let's scale it down. The hardest thing to do in the NFL is to successfully do something that the other team knows exactly what you're going to do. And when a Hail Mary is coming, you know exactly what the other team is trying to do. I hate to continue to go back to this player, but that's why people marvel in awe at how successful Aaron Rodgers has been at Hail Marys. And I said that we saw the mountaintop and the mountain valleys of a Hail Mary with this Commanders Bears game. I don't remember homie's name. The defender for the Bears. But just like everything has to go right for the offensive team trying to complete a Hail Mary, if one or two things don't go right for the defending team, they lost. I don't remember the dude's name, but he was that one or two thing that didn't go right. The Commanders beat the Bears 18-15 on a Hail Mary. Probably the biggest regular season game, or I'll say the biggest ending to the regular season game in Commanders history, Washington history. It was just electric, bro. You had the number 1 overall pick going against the number 2 overall pick, Jaden Daniels, or Caleb Williams going up against Jaden Daniels. Two teams that only had 2 losses on the season. This was, in all intents and purposes, a huge game for both teams. And it was an ugly game throughout until the fourth quarter. Jaden Daniels threw for 326 yards, and that one touchdown was the Hail Mary. While I said that everything has to go right for a offense to complete a Hail Mary, if one or two things don't go right for a defense, they can very well lose on a Hail Mary. And the defensive player that was taunting the crowd while the play was happening, so he was late to his assignment. The coaching staff that allowed the 15-yard slant route or 15-yard catch that put Washington in the position to even be able to throw the ball down the field. Remind you, Jaden Daniels had a rib injury, so it ain't like he didn't have the greatest game throwing the ball. He was 21 for 38. And I think the most egregious decision outside of the defensive player taunting the crowd mid-play, but they first of all, the Washington Commanders had to go like 70 yards, 70, 75 yards. You put a spy on Jaden Daniels. Like Jaden Daniels is about to burst out for a 70-yard run. Yeah, it was a myriad of blunders that essentially allowed Washington to complete a Hail Mary and win the game. I don't think there's any question that Washington is the best team right now in the NFC East. Even though we'll talk about the Eagles in a second, Washington is just... I was completely wrong about Dan Quinn. He has been an incredible coach. I was completely wrong about Cliff Kingsbury as the offense. I damn near shredded that decision, and his offense has been electric. Commanders have been one of the best offenses in football, and yeah. I will say that a lot of those decisions, it was a really tough watch as a fan, as a football fan, not just a Commanders fan, but as a football fan. It was a tough watch watching some of the decision making from the Bears in that fourth quarter. And honestly, I think that this was one of the first games where Caleb Williams looked like the pressure of the game was getting to him. He kind of looked like that the first, one or two games, and it looked like he kind of steered the ship in the right direction. It looked like he heard all of how important this game was and the fact that you're going up against, you're going up against the number 2 overall pick whoever wins this game is likely going to be in the driver's seat of Offensive Rookie of the Year. And he did not play great at all. I do also think it's crazy that the Bears are now 4-3, and all 3 losses are on the road. While I still have all the praise in the world for the NFC North, you can't consider yourself a Super Bowl team or I'm not gonna say playoff, or a top tier team if you can't get wins on the road. Now, yes, losing to a Hail Mary is tough, but I think this Hail Mary was more of, I'm not going to say luck, I'm going to say poor decision-making from some defensive players more than the offense just completing a Hail Mary. But hey, the Commanders are now 6-2. And what a feeling it is. No, the Commanders aren't anywhere. I don't think they're close to the Lions right now. And I do think that while it hasn't come back to bite the Commanders yet, losing someone like Jonathan Allen for the season will definitely come back to bite them. But we beat the Bears 18-15. And Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, is the clear-cut, and I mean clear-cut player or offensive player of the year. I think Jaden Daniels is so good, he should be in MVP talks. But hey, that's just me hoping. So, shouts out to the Commanders for beating the Bears 18-15. Oh boy. Let's go down. Let's talk about the Browns beating the Ravens 29-24. Now, I'm going to acknowledge that this game was the best the Browns have looked. I was extremely critical on the fans booing and cheering for Deshaun Watson getting injured. And I had a lot of people talk to me. Hold on. I had a lot of people talk to me about, yeah, well, the organization is forcing us to, or forcing their fans to support someone that has a bunch of off the field allegations and stuff. I'm like, the organization isn't forcing you to do anything. If you claim that you are so against what Deshaun Watson was claimed of doing, and I'm not saying he didn't do it, I'm just saying I literally wasn't there, so I don't know what's true and what's not. If you are so against what Deshaun Watson is doing, you don't have to support the organization. You don't have to watch Browns games. You don't have to, you didn't have to support them. And which I so eloquently told them, while you could be right, I didn't hear anybody. They still cheered as loud as they possibly could when Deshaun Watson scored touchdowns. So, did y'all really care, or did a lot of people really care that much about those allegations when Deshaun Watson was good? When Deshaun Watson was on a 12 for 12 play drive to win the game? No. Those cheers were mighty loud. I didn't hear too many boos then. So you can miss me with, well, the reason why a lot of people cheered is because the organization is forcing them to support a person that's been accused of what he's been accused of. Again, the organization is not making you do anything. You have individualism. You have freedom of who you will and who you won't support. The organization ain't done nothing but made a decision for themselves. So, but back to this. I want to focus on the Browns first. This game did show you what this team could look like with a player at the quarterback position that is not struggling with finding their confidence. I don't think there's anybody on this planet that hears all the sound bites that come from the Jameis Winston, that hear all the quirky things that come from him being as genuine as possible. I don't think anyone questions if Jameis Winston has a confidence problem or not. And one thing that confidence does, it doesn't allow you to second guess. Jameis Winston threw for 334 yards. I don't remember the last time Deshaun Watson did that. Jameis Winston had 3 touchdowns. I don't remember the last time Deshaun Watson had 3 touchdowns. This Browns team looked different. It had a different sense of life. It had a different sense of belief in themselves, because they have a quarterback now that they believe in, not because of all the allegations that was against Deshaun Watson. They had trouble believing in Deshaun Watson because Deshaun Watson had trouble believing in himself, which we talked about when we talked about confidence. And when I said Deshaun Watson is not ever going to get better if he does not find his confidence. What we saw on Sunday was a quarterback in Jameis Winston that has all the problems in the world, but has the confidence. This Browns team looked extremely different. They looked extremely capable. And they beat a team that a lot of people, including myself, feel has something to say about who represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Again, going into this game, the Browns only won one game. And this kind of goes more on the Ravens than the Browns, but you can talk about a lot of what ifs with this game. But what we do know is the Browns beat the Ravens 29-24. And I'm not saying that Jameis Winston is the quarterback of the future. I'm also not saying that Deshaun Watson won't come back and be the starting quarterback. I'm not saying any of that. I don't know. And I'm also not saying that this has turned around the Browns season. What I am saying is there's a reason why the Browns looked mighty different against the Ravens than they've done all year. It's because they're playing, or they have a quarterback starting that not only the team believes in, but he believes in himself. And all intents and purposes, he didn't have the greatest game, but he had a good enough game to win. And that is something that the Browns have not had all year, which is why this game felt different. It just felt like the team had a different feel, a different energy to it. And on the Ravens side, I'm sitting on a fence, and I can lean on both sides, and both sides would be true. One side is it's just one game. And like I said just now, there were a lot of things that could have went the Ravens' way. The Ravens dropped at least 3. And I mean like blatantly dropped at least 3 interceptions that could have completely changed this outcome. On top of that, they dropped at least 2 to 3 dimes by Lamar Jackson that could have drastically changed the outcome of this game. So if you're counting, that's 6 drops, 3 on the defense, 3 on the offense. That could have, hell, one of the biggest ones was at the end of the game where Kyle Hamilton had the interception in his hands. If he would have intercepted the ball, we would have had a completely different conversation because the Ravens would have won the game. It would have been 3 taking the knees and then the game's over. But he dropped the interception. That was literally in his hands. He just bobbled it. So on that side of the fence, you can say, well, they had their opportunities. It just didn't, they're still 5-3. Now they're second in the division. They have a tough schedule, but it's not as tough as some of the teams that could fight for the top of the division, but it's just one loss. Lamar Jackson played okay. It's just one loss. Or you can go on the other side of the fence. For some reason, this is yet another game where the Ravens felt that they needed to abandon the run. We saw that last year in the AFC Championship. We saw that the first, 2 games of the season, even with Derrick Henry. The Ravens, and for some reason, this happened. This happens in majority of their losses. They abandon the run for no reason, and I'm not saying that you have to give Derrick Henry 30, 40 carries, but in a game where obviously the wide receivers ain't coming to play like that, outside of Zay Flowers, there should be no reason why Derrick Henry has 11 carries. In a game that you're struggling to produce offense because the wide receivers keep dropping the ball, and the offensive line isn't doing its thing, that is not the time to abandon the run, in my opinion. And the Ravens have continued to, they've done that now 3 occasions. And on top of that, Shannon Sharp talked about it. And I didn't really think about it until he kind of broke it down, and it makes sense. All season it's been talked about how poor of it. Oh, and on top of that, all season it's been talked about how poor the secondary is for the Baltimore Ravens. They're like damn near dead last or last in almost every single passing category defensively. And you can say, well, they didn't have their top 2 corners. Marlon Humphreys didn't play. Nate Wiggins didn't play. But even in knowing that, why would you then abandon the run? Because the best way to help your defense is to keep them off the field. I think Eddie Jackson had the worst game of his life on Sunday. 2 of those interceptions that were dropped was him. And the last 2 touchdowns that the Browns, especially the game-winning touchdown, was on Eddie Jackson. I think the Ravens have an opportunity. I'll say this. Maybe you can say that the Ravens overlooked this opponent. I mean, you're playing a 1-6 team. Even though it is a division rival, you're playing against Jameis Winston, who hasn't started in 2 years. Maybe you can say that. Maybe you can say, hey, Marlon Humphreys, the defense was, or the secondary was so bad because Marlon Humphreys didn't play. Nate Wiggins didn't play. When they come back, they'll be fine. Even though this team wasn't great with them playing. But I said it on Twitter, and I'll say it here. This Ravens team is not a Super Bowl team until they get their secondary. Because while they may possibly be able to win in shootouts, it is damn hard winning a Super Bowl when you have to win in a shootout. Especially when you have an offense that is as good as this offense can be when they run and pass the ball. But this offense isn't built for a shootout. It doesn't have the receivers. It doesn't have the offensive line. It's not built for a shootout. It's built to ground and pound and Lamar Jackson do what he has to do. But if you think that they could, if you think that they're built to win a Super Bowl after having to score 40 to 45 points every game, that's not a recipe for success. And right now, this secondary is so bad, it might. Again, you let Jameis Winston, who had his first start in almost 2 years, drop 334 yards on you. Marlon Humphrey didn't play. I get it, but those stats, just those are those second to last or last in every passing category for defense. That didn't just happen last game. So congratulations to the Browns for beating the Ravens 29-24. Look, man. The Steelers. We're looking at a traditional Steelers team just in a non-traditional way. Let me explain that to you. The Steelers beat the Giants 26-20 or 26-18. what we know, what the Steelers' calling card is, what the Steelers feel is successful to them, is having a smash mouth defense, having a defense that doesn't allow anything, having a top tier defense, an exceptional running game, and a great head coach, and a serviceable quarterback. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be, honestly, a quarterback that, a top tier quarterback. It just has to be a serviceable quarterback. That is what the Steelers have done. And that is the conventional way that the Steelers approach damn near every season. I mean, Mike Tomlin has never seen a losing record. But when I say this is the conventional Steelers being unconventional, they have everything but that. All right, so their defense is still great. T.J. Watt is great. Highsmith is great. Cameron Hayward, he's going to the Hall of Fame when he's done playing. He's great. Mike Tomlin is still Mike Tomlin. But while their running game is okay, they now have a quarterback that can take the top off the offense or take the top off the defense. Now, I'm not saying that Russell Wilson is back to being the old Russell Wilson. I'm not saying that Russell Wilson can even lead this team to a Super Bowl. But this is the first time in a while that we've seen I'm not even going to say balanced, but close to balanced Steelers team. Now, I know people are going to say, well, Jalen, they beat the Giants, and it wasn't even pretty. The Giants had a chance at the end. You're right. Which is why I think we're really going to learn a lot about the Steelers this next, 4-week stretch. You have a bye week next week, and then you play the Commanders, then you play the Ravens, then you play the Browns. The Steelers have by far the hardest schedule to end the year. They have all of their divisional games, plus they have the Chiefs in there. So we're going to say a lot about the Steelers, but right now they're number one in the AFC North. Their defense is incredible. Again, I probably have T.J. Watt as the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. And as much as people killed, and I even questioned, I'm not going to say killed, but I questioned Mike Tomlin's decision to sit Justin Fields because I didn't think he did anything to lose his job. You're starting to see why now. The offense, the team looks different with Russell Wilson as their quarterback. Not saying that Justin Fields is bad. I'm just saying. And honestly, I think that this trade deadline is going to be very interesting for a few players, and Justin Fields is one of them. Yo, do you realize in the game Monday night that they designated Justin Fields? Maybe he's injured, I don't know, but they designated him as the third, emergency quarterback, meaning he had absolutely no thought of getting on that field. I think Justin Fields has shown that he's good enough to start somewhere. And there are teams now that we're seeing that may need a starting quarterback. I'm not saying that he is, but let's see. Maybe the Raiders make a move. Maybe the Panthers make a move. Maybe the Saints make a move. I don't know, man. Maybe the Titans make a move. What I'm saying is they haven't shown. There's going to be teams that need a starting quarterback, and Justin Fields has played himself into that. But as of right now, the Steelers look really good, and we're really going to know who these Steelers are at least these next 4 to 5 weeks because they have a gauntlet. And they beat the Giants, bro. The Giants. I don't know how many times, like, oh boy, it's so tough watching an undisciplined team. It's just flag after penalty after penalty after penalty. And it's like, bro, at some point you have to get out your own way. Shouts out to Tracy. He's a rookie. He did have 20 carries for 145 yards and a touchdown. He was really the only bright spot for this team. I mean, even Malik Neighbors was dropping passes. Like, the Giants suck, bro. Shouts out to the Steelers for beating the Giants 26-18. Like I said, I missed Saturday's episode, so I wasn't able to discuss what happened with the Vikings and the Rams. So I know what happened on Thursday night last week. I'm going to just be brief. The Rams beat the Vikings 30-20. Puka Nacua came back. Cooper Kupp came back. It's no coincidence that this Rams offense looked much better than it had in the previous. You have your top two wide receivers. And I do think it's very interesting, and I understand it, that the Vikings are actively the Rams are actively trading or actively seeking trades for Cooper Kupp. When you're a team that isn't really a Super Bowl contender and a team costs as much as the Rams cost, they went all in for that Super Bowl. And they won, but now that's when you're starting to see that ramifications of paying as much as you pay Cooper Kupp, and you're gonna have to pay Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford. So, and you don't have really any draft picks till like 2030. So I get it. I think Puka Nacua. I think Cooper Kupp still had a chance to be incredible. He has been dealing with injuries a lot, but I still think he's really good. And I to be honest with you, I don't think that them trading him is an indictment on his skill set going down. I just think that they're in a bind. They don't have any draft picks, and he and Puka Nacua are really the only assets that you can trade. And I don't think you're going to trade Puka Nacua because he's still on a rookie contract. So, yeah. And for the Vikings, I don't think they were exposed or anything. I just think that they lost, and they lost to a team that is really good offensively. I will say this though. We've seen this a couple times this year. If you are going to go to the monitor, right? If you have the opportunity to get something right, why not do that every time? I'm not saying slow down the game, but when you have a controversial ending that the Vikings and Rams had, when you have a ref looking damn near where this camera is, it's not that far from me, and seeing a face mask on Sam Darnold and not calling it, but the replay center can see it clear as day. At that point, you have to say, yo, hold on, hey, bro, you missed that, like a blatant one. So we're just gonna call it for you. You missed it. Stuff like that ends games. Stuff like that can affect playoff situations. And that was a black eye on the league. That was terrible. Yo, do you see this? For all my DSP listeners, I'm showing a picture of Sam Darnold's face mask. Bro, homie, the dude for the Rams even knew he had the face. He was like, golly, man, I can't believe I did that. And was shocked when they didn't call it. Just get it right. I'm not saying that the Vikings would have won, but it gave them a better shot to win instead of calling a sack, which is then a safety. No. Congratulations to the Rams for beating the Vikings 30-20. You talk about two teams seemingly going in two different directions. The Eagles beat the Bengals 37-17. This is probably the first game this whole year where the Eagles looked as dominant as their roster says they should be. Saquon Barkley rushed for 22 yards or 22 carries for 108 yards. Jalen Hurts played great. Devontae Smith had 85 yards and a touchdown. The Eagles dominated the Bengals. Now, the Bengals' biggest issue has been their defense. And as much as people have lamented and talked about how bad the Eagles have been this year, they are currently 5-2. They're second in the NFC East. And again, they're starting. It feels like, at least this game, that they're starting to come into form. Again, AJ Brown looked good when they're healthy. People also have been killing Nick Sirianni, and rightfully so. He hasn't been great, but going into anybody's joint and beating them 37-17 is a feat. And like I said, this was probably the first game this year where the Eagles looked as dominant as you thought they should. So, and for the Bengals, I know you can say, well, T. Higgins didn't play. T. Higgins ain't worth 20 points, bro. There's so many issues with this team. I know they said, slow start. And Joe Burrow came out and said, you got to win 7 of the next 9 games. That's doable. In fact, I want to see something real quick. I want to see what the Bengals next. Okay. So the only reason why I would agree is doable because they have a light schedule. But let's walk it through together. Their next game is against the Raiders. I can see them beating the Raiders. I got them beating the Raiders. The next game is the Ravens. I do not have them beating the Ravens. The next game is the Chargers. I can see them losing to the Chargers, but I have them beating the Chargers. I do not have them beating the Steelers. I have them beating the Cowboys. I have them beating the Titans. I don't know if I have them beating the Browns. I don't know at this point if I have them beating the Broncos. And I don't know if you'll beat so let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. So I have them maybe favored in 5 of the next 7 games, or 5 of the next 9. Yeah, I don't know about that, bro. Good luck. Shouts out to the Eagles for beating the Bengals 30. Also, the Bengals suck defensively, bro, and they can't run the ball. So it's like, yeah, shouts out to the Eagles. So go in to put 52 on an NFL team's head is a feat. That really shows how good you are compared to, and also shows how bad they are. The Lions beat the Titans 52-14. There's starting to be clear separation about who is the best team in the NFC. In fact, right now, I know it's hard to say because the Eagles, how good they looked on Sunday, but I don't think there is any team in the NFC that is close right now to the Lions. Yes, you can say the Titans had Mason Rudolph and it's the Titans. True, I do think that. I don't know if they put 52 on a good team's head, but this team shows you how good they can be when they're firing on cylinders, and it's tough. It's tough to go against a freight train like that. So shouts out to the Lions for beating the Titans 52-14. That is crazy. Man, yeah, it's going to be very tough beating this Lions team. I could see this Lions team winning it all, honestly. But shouts out to you for beating the Titans. Yo, first of all, it was tight ends day. Pause. And you saw, I think the tight ends had the most receptions like on a day ever. And we saw two stud tight ends play against each other when the Chiefs beat the Raiders 27-20. Travis Kelce had 10 receptions for 90 yards and one touchdown. Brock Bowers, Brock Bowers, he's just continuing. People gave me flack when I said that he is arguably the greatest college tight end we've ever seen. And obviously the pros is not college, but he hasn't missed a beat. Brock Bowers has been incredible. And there's been only two. Again, there's only been two bright spots with this Raiders team, and that is Max Crosby and Brock Bowers. There is no other bright spots on this team. This team sucks. This team is not good. Gardner Minshew I don't know if he threw an interception, but he definitely lost a fumble. Yeah, nah. And another Chiefs win. They're 7-0, bro. Patrick Mahomes didn't have the best game like usual, but I'm not going to say like usual, like he's had this whole year. But he did enough to win. 262 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's the Chiefs, man. They're undefeated. Shouts out to the Chiefs for beating the Raiders 27-20. Shouts out to Tight Ends Day. This is also coming at, George Kittle also he was pretty much the best player on the field for the Cowboys game too. So that was them. In fact, let me see something real quick. Let me just make sure I read this correctly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to check on something just to make sure I had this correctly before I said something. Yes. The Texans beat the Colts 23-20. It has been confirmed that Stephon Diggs, I think, tore his ACL, so he's out for the season. This is also coming as Nico Collins is on IR. Now, he's not out for the season, but he's not playing right now. This is a huge, huge blow. The Texans they're a really good team. They're good defensively. CJ Stroud's really good. You still have Tank Dell. You still have Joe Mixon. But the allure of this team was you gave CJ Stroud an abundance of weapons. And while I don't think that this is it for the Titans, I don't think that they, are going to fall off a cliff. Now, when you put them up against some of the better teams, the thing that got them over the top was they have such an abundance of talent at the receiver and at the running back position. Now that you don't have Stephon Diggs for the season, now that Nico Collins, we don't know when he's going to come back, it's going to be tough. Yeah, you still have Dalton Schultz, but I don't know if it hasn't been enough. It's been enough. They're 6-2, but losing Stephon Diggs is a gut punch. Again, he was one of their big acquisitions this offseason. And when you go down with a non-contact injury, you kind of know what had happened. You saw that you see that a lot, but you saw that with basketball. James Wiseman went down with a non-contact injury, ACL. I pray for a speedy recovery with Stephon Diggs, and yeah, I think that while it may not hurt them in the present, it's going to be definitely affected not having someone like Stephon Diggs in the playoffs. So And for the Colts, I think people have to be self-aware more, I think. Yo, Anthony Richardson comes out. Mind you, let me give you a couple backstory. Let me give you some more details before I say this. Anthony Richardson is having one of the worst statistical seasons from a starting quarterback. I think going into Sunday, he was completing 44.4% of his passes. To put that into context, that is the worst. Like, that's on par with that's close to Jamarcus Russell. So to say that, and then, or to give you that context, he's been trash. And on top of that, the Colts are 4-4. A lot of it is because of the play of Joe Flacco and the defense that has been struggling with injuries as well. To come out, look, I don't advocate for anyone to lie, like, you don't need to lie, but sometimes admitting the truth is the best thing for you. Bro, this man said that he, in a critical third down, it was like third and goal, a critical third and goal, he said that he tapped himself out because he was too tired. I don't think and you can tell nobody's ever heard that before, because you saw the firestorm that he got from social media and from media organizations, sports media organizations. It's like, bro, read the room, bro. Lie. I wasn't feeling well. I tweaked something, but I'm good. Like, do something. God, this, like I said, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, bro. And there's been a lot more Dr. Jekyll than, yeah. Shouts out to the Texans for beating the Colts 23-20. Hey, I want to also say shout out to the Cardinals for beating the Dolphins 28-27. I didn't think that the Cardinals were going to be 4-4. I didn't think they'd be this good. They're not great, but Kyler Murray is, he had 307 yards, 2 touchdowns. Trey McBride had 9 receptions for 124 yards. This Cardinals team continues to find a way to win. The connection with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison continues to grow. Ryland, he hit the game-winning field goal. They're a young team, and they're not that good of a team, but they continue to find ways to win, and I want to say shout us out for that, man. And for the Dolphins, Tua came back. You guys know my feelings about how I view Tua playing and what I think he should do, but obviously I don't have no say-so. Nobody else in this world honestly has a say-so but him, and he decided to play. And he didn't look great, but he also has been out for the last, 4 to 5 weeks. There's always going to be a hypersensitive glasses on Tua because of all the injuries and concussions that he's dealt with. And at this point, the way that I look at the Dolphins, I don't even care if they make the playoffs or not, which is kind of the realm that they put themselves in when they are allowing Tua to play. Now it's just, all right, let's hope Tua doesn't get hurt. But shouts out to the Cardinals for beating the Dolphins 28-27. Oh. The Bills beat the Seahawks 31-10. Now, shouts out to the Bills. Josh Allen looked incredible again. I think this was the first game he threw an interception. James Cook went crazy. 101 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Jesus. The connection with Josh Allen and Keon Coleman continues to grow. It's looking great. And I think that having Amari Cooper helps as well. So shouts out to them. And for the Seahawks, bro, I hear everyone saying that, hey, well, what's his name didn't play. You know, DK Metcalf didn't play. Yo, DK Metcalf ain't worth 21 points. Your offense shouldn't fall off a cliff because of one player. Don't get me wrong. Now maybe quarterback, yes, but if it's not a quarterback, one player should make your offense go from here to here. It just no. The Seahawks, they're just not that good of a team. They're not a consistent team. And that's just honest. When they go up against good teams like the Bills, they lose. Who did they just lose to on primetime? It was when they had two overtime. I mean, no, they had two Monday Night Football games, and they lost to somebody. I don't remember who. Was it the Cardinals? I don't remember. But it's like they're just not as good as you would like them to be. So, shouts out to the Bills for beating the Seahawks 31-10. Man, all right. Oh, the Falcons beat the Buccaneers. What was it? Beat the Buccaneers 31-26. As unfortunate as it is, when you lose someone like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans is dealing with the hamstring injury, I don't see much success for the Buccaneers. Even though Baker Mayfield did have 330 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, that doesn't really matter. Like, Bijan Robinson had an okay game. Kyle Pitts had probably one of his best games as a pro. 4 receptions, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins threw 4 touchdowns, I believe. This Falcons team can be really good. And you're going up against a Buccaneers team that is kind of reeling injury-wise. And when you lose your top 2 wide receivers, yeah, you still have Bucky Irving, and the running game is cool, but that's not going to be enough, I don't think so. Shouts out to the Falcons for beating the Buccaneers 31-26. Look here, bro. The Chargers beat the Saints 26-8. This was more about the Saints, in my opinion, than the Chargers. The Chargers didn't have a great game, but they still won. At some point, bro, you have to think about. At some point, you have to ask yourself, when are we gonna blow this up? It's not working, and it was working for the first 2 games, and then just something happened. It wasn't even no injury; it just something happened. And while yes, Desmond Ridder is starting at the quarterback position, I don't think that Derek Carr is going to save this Saints team. The defense doesn't look that good, even though the defense doesn't look that good. Dennis Allen looks. The Saints look bad, bro. The Saints have now lost 6 straight games. Yeah. Oh, they did give Alvin Kamara a 2-year extension. Shouts out to them, but yeah. You let McConkey go for 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lad McConkey. The Saints suck, bro. Shouts out to the Chargers. And also, shouts out to the Broncos for beating the Panthers 28-14. I didn't even watch this game. The Panthers suck. And I know you're gonna say, Bryce Young, it's not on Bryce Young. This whole team sucks, bro. I did see that Deontay Johnson was traded to the Baltimore Ravens. That could be pretty big. But because the Ravens did need another wide receiver, and they also kind of need a cornerback and a deep pass rusher. But maybe we'll see Jadeveon Clowney go back or somebody. I don't know. But the Panthers. Shouts out to the Broncos. The Broncos are 5-3, bro. Bo Nix has looked pretty good. But you're playing against the Panthers. Shouts out to y'all. That's been, what week is this? That's been week 8. As I'm recording this, the Dodgers are up 3-0 in the World Series, and they're playing tonight. In fact, they're playing probably in about an hour. I've said this before, and I've said this again. Your big names, your best players have to show up in big moments. And all of the name on the back of the jersey, the name, the cash, it doesn't matter if you're not performing. And what we're seeing is one side of the ball, we're seeing Freddie Freeman having, he couldn't hit air with a nose in the NLCS. This man has now homered in including a walk-off home run in the first game of the World Series. He's a walk-off grand slam home run, might I add you, to win the game. Like, Freddie Freeman has woke up. Yo, Shohei Ohtani got hurt, and he's still playing well. Teoscar, like, the Dodgers' best players are coming to play, while the Yankees' best players, Aaron Judge is having a historically bad World Series right now. I think he's like 6 for 43 or something. He's having a historically bad World Series. The Giancarlo Stanton's bat that woke up this entire entire postseason has not been great. It's like I think they're about to get swept, bro. By the time you listen to this, the Dodgers can be world champions. It's crazy. Shouts out to the Dodgers, man. But the Yankees, their best players, names aside, your best players have to come and play. And Juan Soto, he home run, but the Dodgers' best players have played their best in the World Series, while the Yankees have not. And lastly, before we go, we have the unpopular topic of the day. And people are saying I should be apologizing to JJ Redick for having the Lakers look as good as they've looked. And I was very vocal about how I didn't think that JJ Redick was going to make that much of a difference for this Lakers team. And now the Lakers, I think, are 3-1, and they look incredible. And I will say that people are right. I was overly critical, and I didn't think JJ Redick was going to be that good of a coach for this team. And I was wrong. I apologize. JJ Redick has been incredible for the Lakers. He got Austin Reeves looked like a legit star. Even though a team that can't shoot threes, they shoot a lot of them and make a lot of them. They're pretty good. Defensively, they're really good. He had Anthony Davis looking like he has Anthony Davis looking like the Anthony Davis that we saw for the Pelicans. Yeah, man, I was extremely wrong. I'm not saying that this team is good enough to win a championship, but they look much better, at least starting out, than I thought they would. So shouts out to the Lakers and shouts out to JJ Redick. And I apologize. I was wrong. I was overcritical. And there you have it. That has been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, links in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely would mean a lot to me. Also, if you listen on the DSPs, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you listen, please follow, please subscribe. I appreciate you guys. It definitely means a lot. No platform is bigger than the other. Please follow whatever DSPs you listen to. Also, please follow Instagram, follow TikTok. I did take like I said, I was out of town, so I took a few days off. So that's why you didn't see many reels. But I'm back, so you got more. You pretty much get real stories daily. If you want to debate, if you want to go back and forth, social media is probably the quickest way to get to me. Keep it respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're listening to me and that you're passionate about whatever we're talking about. I appreciate it. Just keep it respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth. But please follow the socials, TikTok, Instagram. Please follow. Until next. Oh, go vote, man. Go vote. Voting is extremely important. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not telling you who I voted for. Just go vote. I was one of those people that didn't think my vote mattered too much back in the day, but I also understand that my vote isn't going to mean anything if I don't do it. I at least want to have a say in how I think the country that I'm supposed to be living in and that my family's supposed to be living in, I would like to have a say-so in that. So, go vote. Go vote. Go vote. If you can sit and watch a entire football game, watch an entire basketball game, you can get your ass up and go to the voting polls. You can do a mail-in vote. Just vote. Just vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. What I am saying is vote. And until next time, much love.